Soaring prices and stubbornly high mortgage rates are forcing younger cash-strapped Americans to delay buying a home. A new report shows the median age for first-time home buyers is now 40 years old compared to 33 just a few years ago. Okay, Jackie, what do you think about that?
American dream is getting harder and harder to come by. That is a real feeling in America right now, and it's been progressing as time has gone on. I think part of it is competition. I think part of it is technology. I don't blame it as much on financial conditions or where the specific interest rate is. Why I go back to technology is because I think about some of these young people who are saying they don't have a down payment to be able to buy a home, that they're either not making enough or that the interest rate is keeping them out of the housing market. And I personally tend to think it's their spending that's keeping them out of the market. As we have grown up, as we are watching this consumption society on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, people want experiences and they spend more on things to keep up with their neighbors, and therefore some of the old-fashioned kind of fundamental saving habits have gone out the window. I look at it from that angle more than the economic conditions. Taylor, you brought up the mortgage rates in the teens in the 80s when our parents were buying homes. Dagan, you also mentioned home prices were a lot less then. I think it all kind of does even out. And, you know, anything is like a balance sheet. It's a snapshot, a moment in time, and this is the particular moment in time. But it's the lack of the sort of financial wherewithal, the down payment, the ability to be, you know, nimble in these conditions to be able to do something. That's how I see it.
And we just talked about these quote-unquote affordable bags that you brought up, and, you know, they're not $20,000, but if you're a Gen Z and you're spending $500 on a bag, like, I don't think my folks were doing that when they went to buy their first home. They're probably walking around with a paper bag from the grocery store. So maybe Jackie's right there, but it's a different world too in that you've got institutional buyers and you've got a whole different space for who's competing for these homes, Taylor.
Yes. So on the one hand, I think I mentioned I went to a coffee shop the other day and it was like $7 for a tall little coffee. So I hear you on it's the little things that eventually add up. But I do come with potentially good news. We've talked a lot about how we're very concerned about rent freezes from Mamdani, who was elected 2 days ago. But there are also some, at least this is very New York City. I know this isn't national, Brian, but there were a few referendums on that ballot and some proposals that went through. The Wall Street Journal saying that 3 of these actually should ease the regulatory burden to help build new big developments in New York City. One measure says it makes it now harder for one single city council member to block a new housing project.
Is this the yes thing that they were talking about in the debate?
Yes. And Mamdani finally, I think, came out and said that he voted yes, but originally he wouldn't say what he voted for. And then 2 other proposals will speed up the approval process for affordable housing and modest projects. Now, we can debate
voting for that the other day,
if those are
sure. Why
so
not?
I don't want one single housing member to be able to derail a big developer project. Many developers had complained that that had put them on the sidelines.
And more supply.
Now, that's a New York City thing, not a national thing. But yes, if we remove some of the regulatory burdens, that helps the supply side of the equation.
Absolutely. I mean, we need more supply. If prices are high, you need more supply. And ironically, government in recent years did a lot to restrict that supply. I remember all those ultra low interest rates during the pandemic. You still have got a lot of Americans sitting with 3% mortgages. That's a disincentive for them to sell, a disincentive for them to get out of their homes. And one of the reasons why homes remain so
and the irony is that it was the Biden administration and many of these Democrats that are so pro-regulation, which ends up hurting the market. And then you've got somebody like Zohran Mamdani who comes in and says, well, we need to rent freeze and we need to do this and that to be able to fix it. The fix is actually pretty easy.
Go where you want, Dagan, but can I just throw something out there? I debate with people sometimes about, or people debate me and say, why are you so concerned about home ownership? The younger generation doesn't want to own homes. Why should they have to own homes? Does it matter for America and the culture of America whether or not we have a society of homeowners?
It does. This is one of the reasons. I believe that it fosters family, commitment to community, even church, a stability in a society. But when you have, and those top sources for down payment, now more than like 22%, so more than 1/5 comes from gifts or loans
Yeah.
from family and friends. So when you can, when a normal working couple with a normal job, whatever normal is, but regular folks can't afford to buy a home unless you come from a well-off family or a family with a lot of cash sitting around, then you perpetuate this inequality issue. It's like the inequality of education that we used to experience as a society, where you could only go to an Ivy League school if you came from a family with a lot of money. So it creates the haves and the have-mores and the have-nots and the have-nothings when it comes to home ownership. However, this is the good news. So right now, and I know a lot of people who have bought houses because their families have given them money for the down payment.
I do too.
So if you just bought some overpriced box at a BS price at multiples of what it's worth, simply because your mommy and daddy gave you some money to put the down payment, you just made a bad investment, and you just wedged yourself into a financially disadvantaged situation. And if those home prices start coming down, you're going to be trapped in it. You'll be underwater and unable to move. It's
I
like
add
if
to
mommy and
yours?
daddy gave you the money to buy a yacht.
So
it's still a stupid boat.
So to pick up on that, I am a great case study of that. Let's say I got a savings and I'm able to buy an apartment. I had to sell that apartment for a loss, but if I'd put that down payment in the stock market, I'd be higher. So I agree with you. I think home ownership fosters the formation of family, community, a sense of pride of ownership, wanting to take care of something. But it isn't always the best financial investment. Now, I have to remember, a home may not always be a financial investment. It may be a home investment, a community investment, a family investment. But if I'm looking at the pure numbers, Jack and I have talked about this. That down payment would serve you better maybe in the stock market. Now, the goals are very different, but the argument may not always be a financial one.
It might, but you'd have to invest it properly. You'd have to still save it and not squander it in other ways. You know, not necessarily sure people would save it if they weren't putting it in the home. So
I just wanted to
and
make
there's
that.
risk.
I just wanted to make the point that people should not feel bad, and I don't want, like, people, if you don't have the advantage of having family to give you money, it might work out to your advantage.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes real estate is a terrible investment. I think of, for example, Japan. Real estate prices were underwater for about 30 years, from the late 1980s all the way through the early part of this century. So, you know, real estate, I know in New York and a lot of big metropolitan areas, it seems to go up year after year after year, but that's not always the case. And Taylor, to your point, historically, real estate is extraordinarily expensive right here today.
I think there's something good for the soul about having to mow your own lawn. And it smells really good in the springtime.
It's not the mowing the lawn, it's fixing the boiler. You know how to do that? It's a pain in the butt.
I know more about it now than I used to.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Got to clean that thing every 2 years.